Greetings. I am Professor Becky Floyd, founder of Death Education Central, and I have a fun presentation for you today. I'm calling it Wild and Weird Winter, Dark Delights and Curious Customs of the Holiday Season. Now, because midwinter traditions are fundamentally how humans face darkness, uncertainty, and the cycles of life and death, these rituals, whether solemn, playful, chaotic, or comforting, help communities navigate fear, honor the past, and imagine renewal. By looking at how different cultures transform the darkest time of year into something meaningful, we gain insight into the symbolic, emotional, and mythic tools people use to cope with change and loss and the unknown. Understanding these practices enriches our approach to death education by showing that humans have always used story and ritual and creativity to turn darkness toward light. So, why do so many cultures have midwinter celebrations? Across the world, people have always marked the darkest days of winter, at least in the northern and southern hemispheres where there are seasonal differences, with celebration and ritual and story. The winter solstice, which is the longest night of the year, has been recognized since very ancient times as a turning point, a threshold moment, when the sun begins its slow return. In temperate regions, especially, midwinter traditions grew from seasonal and agricultural cycles, which are times when communities would gather to share their pooled, scarce resources and take that opportunity to reaffirm relationships, arrange for marriage partners, and plan for the future and look forward with hope. Many of the holidays that we celebrate today, from Christmas to Hanukkah to countless regional observances, have roots in older solstice practices. And they all share something in common. They help people endure the cold, the dark, and the uncertainty of winter by creating connection and meaning and joy. Some of these traditions are familiar, but many others are stranger, funnier, older, and wonderfully weird. Today we're going to explore a few of the more unusual ones, from mischievous creatures to carved vegetables to ghostly horses, as a reminder that cultures everywhere find very creative ways to meet the long night. The Night of Radishes, or in Spanish, Noche de Rabanos, is an annual event held on December 23rd in Oaxaca, Mexico. And it is dedicated to the carving of oversized radishes to create scenes that compete for prizes in various categories. The event has its origins in the colonial period, when radishes were introduced by the Spanish. Oaxaca has a long wood carving tradition, and farmers began carving radishes into figures as a way to attract customers' attention at Christmas markets, which were held in the main square on December 23rd. Back in 1897, the city established a formal competition. As the city grew, the government had to dedicate land to the growing of the radishes used for the event and supervising their growth and distribution to competitors. The event has become very popular, attracting over 100 contestants and thousands of visitors. Since the radishes wilt soon after cutting, the works can only be displayed for a few hours, which has led to very long lines for those who want to see them. Native to China, radishes were introduced to Mexico by the Spanish, particularly the Catholic friars. Over time, the crop became used as a side dish or snack, or carved into decorations for special dishes. In the colonial period, the radishes began to be carved with religious themes in relation to the annual Christmas market. And this was encouraged by the priests. The carvings were initially a marketing gimmick, as I said, for the farmers, using them to attract the attention of shoppers in the market in the city plaza. So eventually people began buying the radishes, not only to eat, but to create centerpieces for Christmas dinner. The legend as to how the event began says that one year in the mid-18th century, the crop of radishes was so abundant that a section lay unharvested for months. In December, 2 friars pulled up some of these forgotten radishes, and because they'd been left in the ground so long, they grew to large sizes and odd shapes, which were very amusing, and they brought them as curiosities to the Christmas market on the December 23rd. These misshapen vegetables attracted attention, and soon they began to be carved to give them a wider variety of shapes and figures. So in 1897, the mayor of the city decided to create a formal radish carving competition, which has been held every year since. The formal Noche de Rabanos competition focuses on the carving of radishes, which will be embellished with other elements, as you can see on the slide. Most entries are scenes that use multiple radishes, with the most traditional being nativity scenes. However, over the 100+ years that the competition has been held, there has been significant diversification in the entries. Common scenes are related to life in Oaxaca and religious iconography. However, they can also depict other themes such as non-Christmas biblical stories, and can even be used as protest art. The most common elements are people, animals, food, and handicrafts that are seen as part of daily life in Oaxaca, but they can also include other things like snowmen and monsters and famous people and more. Now, our next wild and weird winter tradition is one you may have heard of. It is the Krampus. So every year in early December, children in Austria get ready for St. Nicholas to visit them. And if they've been good, he'll reward them with presents and treats. But if they've been bad, they'll get a lot more than a lump of coal. They'll have to face Krampus. So who is Krampus? He is the half man, half goat who comes around every year to chase naughty children and maybe even drag them off to hell. European versions of St. Nicholas have long had scary counterparts like Belsnickel and Net Ruprecht, who dole out punishment. Krampus is one such character who comes from folklore in Austria's Alpine region, where he's been frightening children and amusing adults for hundreds of years. Krampus and St. Nick's other bad boys have their origins in pagan celebrations of the winter solstice. Later, they became part of the Christian traditions in which St. Nicholas visited children to reward them on December 5th or 6th. Around that time, his menacing partner would also visit kids to punish them. In Alpine Austria and some parts of Germany, this day was known as Krampusnacht, or Krampus Night, when adults might dress up as Krampus to frighten children in their homes. Children might have also seen Krampus running through the street during the Krampuslauf, literally a Krampus run. If Krampusnacht was a way to scare kids into behaving themselves, the Krampuslauf, which isn't tied to a specific day, was a way for grown men to blow off steam while probably still scaring kids. Austrian men would get drunk and run through the streets dressed as the fearsome creature Like Krampusnacht, the Krampuslauf traditions continues to the present day. The introduction of mass visual media couldn't help but sweep the charismatic Krampus up in its wave. When the postcard industry experienced a boom in Germany and Austria in the 1890s, it opened the way for Krampuskarten, or Krampus cards. These holiday cards weren't meant to make you feel warm and fuzzy. Ones marked Gruß von Krampus, greetings from Krampus, showed Krampus stuffing a distressed child into his satchel or preparing to hit one with his bundle of birch sticks. Many of these postcards depicted Krampus going after children with his sticks, leading them away in chains, or carrying them off in his bag. For over a century, most Americans probably never saw a Krampus card or even knew who Krampus was, and that changed, though, in 2004 when art director and graphic designer Monty Beecham published a book of Krampus cards and helped organize an art show inspired by the cards. Whether or not Beecham is primarily responsible for introducing Krampus cards to the U.S., Krampus has since become a sort of ironic icon in America. Etsy, for example, has a whole section of items inspired by classic Krampus cards. And if you don't have time to send cards, you can buy an ugly Krampus sweater to wear to your local Krampus party or Krampuslauf. Krampus's popularity in the U.S. peaked with the 2015 feature film Krampus, which shouldn't be confused with many other low-budget Krampus movies. Although Krampus is relatively new to the U.S., this Alpine legend is the original Bad Santa. You'll never forget the moment you first see a Mari Lwyd. She has lights or baubles for eyes. Her mane is made of colorful streamers or holly and ivy. A white cloak falls from her skull, which is attached to a pole, which is held by a person inside of it. The origin of Mari's name are, like the horse herself, deeply mysterious. One Welsh translation of it is grey mare, and it connects it to the heritage of pale horses in Celtic and British mythology, many of whom can cross over to the underworld. The other translation for Mari Lwyd is Grey Mary. Some scholars have linked her to a legend connected to the nativity story. A pregnant horse sent out of the stables when Mary arrived to have Jesus. She spent dark days roaming the land trying to find somewhere to have her foal. Mary has a mischievous nature, often snapping its bony jaw at you. Mary is taken around a village traditionally, often between Christmas Day and Twelfth Night. She is dressed with festive lights and decorations and is usually accompanied by a handler and, in some regions, other folk characters like a jester and a lady. When the groups get to a house, they sing Welsh language songs or wassails, or more traditionally indulge in a ritual involving the exchange of rude Welsh rhymes with the person who lives there. If the Mari and her gang get entry, the household is said to have good luck for the next year. The Mari is well known to be mischievous, trying to steal things and chase people that she likes as she goes about her bidding. The Mari Lwyd and her procession are then given refreshments as the celebration continues inside before moving on to the next house. Now, this one is probably the weirdest and wildest winter holiday tradition that I have come across. And it is known as the El Cagané. There are the traditional figurines in any nativity display you might see. Mary, Joseph, baby Jesus, the shepherds, angels, the wise men bearing gold, frankincense, and myrrh. But there's one figure you might be a little less familiar with. And this is the guy with his pants around his ankles, representing a decidedly different and far less fragrant type of offering. And that's Cagané. And in some parts of the world, it's a staple of the nativity display. The word caganer literally means the crapper in Catalan, a Romance language spoken in Catalonia, and it refers to a nativity scene figure in the act of defecation. Scholars aren't exactly sure when or how the tradition came to be, though there does seem to be a consensus that its roots extend to 18th century Catalonia, which is in the northeast area of Spain. Though excrement is gross, for peasants and farmers it's actually important since it serves as fertilizer. Some think El Caganer was originally a portent of good harvest and fortune to come, a type of fertility symbol. There was a legend that if a countryside man did not put a caganer in the nativity scene, he would have a very bad year growing vegetables. In the words of an old Spanish proverb, dung is no saint, but where it falls, it works miracles. There might also be theological reasons for the nativity edition. El Caganer is significant because it's a reminder of the early Christian belief in the incarnation, that in order to redeem humanity, God had to be fully embodied or incarnated in human flesh. And what's more unifying of a human trait than the idea that everybody poops? It's possible that seeing a religious or political leader in the act of defecation might offend some, but a better way to see it would be as a type of homage paid to a prominent figure. After all, not everyone gets a caganer made of them. You have to have achieved a certain amount of clout. According to caganer.com, which sells hundreds of the figurines, many celebrities see it as an honor to have their own caganers made. And remember, though toilet humor offends our modern sensibilities, earlier cultures were much more comfortable with the subject. The Catalan response to the first caganer was largely a positive one. After all, Catalans are notoriously scatological, and in those days, human waste, like that of all animals, was just another non-toxic fertilizer. Today, most Catalans are all about preserving this quirky tradition, which honestly reflects that part of their agrarian past. In Catalan cultures, caganers are hidden throughout nativity scenes, and children are encouraged to hunt for them. That there now exist caganers that depict American celebrities might signal that the tradition is gaining traction in the States, similar to how other international Christmas traditions, like Krampus, are becoming more popular here. At first blush, the caganer might seem sacrilegious, but think about it. What's irreverent about the act of pooping, which is an inescapable and necessary part of life for humans and animals? The Association of Friends of the Caganer says the figure, quote, adds a human side to the representation of the mystery of Christmas. Without this human side, in fact, there might not even be a Christmas story in the first place. Christianity teaches that in the birth of Jesus, God became fully human, which of course means he would have defecated regularly. Granted, most Christmas songs don't talk about Jesus in such terms, but according to legend, popularized in Christmas songs like Away in the Manger, the meek baby Jesus even supposed to have cried, let alone pooped. Of course, he would have done both, as any newborn's parents will tell you. Including a caganer in a nativity scene is one way Christians can remind themselves of the full humanity of Jesus. Like many children around the world, kids in Italy look forward to the arrival of the red-suited Babbo Natale, or Santa Claus, on Christmas Eve. However, this relatively modern tradition pales in comparison to the anticipation generated by the arrival of an old witch in early January. For Italians, La Festa dell'Epifania on January 6th is just as significant as Christmas Day, especially for Italian children. According to the Italian legend, La Befana, a witch-like woman riding on a broom, refused to join the wise men on their journey to see the baby Jesus. When she regrets her decision, she sets out to bring gifts to the child, but never finds him. Instead, she leaves gifts for other children. Italian children leave out their shoes or hang up stockings for the Befana to fill on January 5th, Epiphany Eve. Epiphany commemorates the 12th day of Christmas, when the three wise men arrived at the manger bearing gifts for baby Jesus. The traditional Christmas holiday season in Italy lasts through Epiphany. The legend continues that every Epiphany Eve, the old, tattered, and soot-covered Befana flies around the world on a broomstick and comes down chimneys to deliver candy and presents to children who have been good during the year. For those who have fallen a bit short of modeled behavior, La Befana will leave lumps of coal. Knowing that all kids can't be perfect year-round, some shops in Italy sell carbone, or black rock candy, that actually looks like pieces of coal. So even those not quite perfect can still enjoy a sweet treat. Unlike today's more well-known Americanized Santa Claus, La Befana has been a holiday tradition in Italy since the Middle Ages and comes from Italian folklore. The arrival of La Befana is celebrated with traditional Italian foods such as panettone and marks the end of the long and festive holiday season in Italy. In honor of the three wise men, Italians go to church and enjoy spending the day with family. Now, for most kids who celebrate Christmas, new clothes probably sit just above lumps of coal on the good present scale. But according to Icelandic tradition, getting new socks before Christmas might just save your life. That is because the jólakötturinn, or Yule Cat, eats anyone who hasn't received new clothes by the time Christmas rolls around. The story of jólakötturinn likely dates back to the Middle Ages, though the oldest written accounts are from the 19th century. In any case, much like the Krampus, the Yule Cat has long been a Christmas-time enforcer of good behavior. According to Icelandic tradition, anyone who finishes their chores before Christmas would get new clothes as a reward. Meanwhile, lazy children who didn't get their work done would have to face the Yule Cat. For starters, the Yule Cat is no mere kitten. It towers above the tallest houses. As it prowls around Iceland on Christmas night, the Yule Cat peers in through the windows to see what kids have gotten for presents. If new clothes are among their possessions, the big cat will move along. But if a child was too lazy to earn their new socks, the jólakötturinn will steal the kid's dinner and then eat the child for dessert. This is the kind of message Icelanders like to send out in their folklore. If you don't have the money or means for acquiring new items of clothes before the Festival of Lights, you'll be eaten by a gigantic cat. Presumably, the threat of being eaten by the jólakötturinn is also meant to inspire generosity in children who don't have to fret about the Yule Cat, as giving clothes to the less fortunate would grant them protection from the monstrous feline. But the giant beast isn't even the only human-eating Christmas monster that Icelanders have the misfortune of having to face every year. There's also the Yule Cat's owners, the trolls Grilla, Leppaluthi, and their 13 children, who all collectively are known as the Yule Lads. So, if you ever find yourself celebrating Christmas in Iceland, make sure to get some new clothes under the tree. It might just save your life. So, today we have seen anthropomorphic radishes, child-stealing demons, dead horses knocking on doors, pooping men hiding in the nativity, Christmas witches, and people eating fashionista cats. All of these Christmas traditions do what all traditions do. They unite the community in common purpose. They give continuity from the past to the present, forming common identity. They give people much needed support through and distraction from the hardship of winter and promise of the spring to come. These traditions might seem weird to outsiders, and that's okay, as long as you remember your traditions are just as weird to them. I mean, why do we do this anyway? I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe if you did. And happy holidays.